What's going on, team? How we doing out in the market right now? I'm ready to get into it. It's start swing trading. We're ready to get back to the action. Talk about swing trades we're looking at. What do we got in play? What do we look at today? Some actually stopping me out already. It just didn't give me the best look. I'll talk a little bit about those. We got a lot going on. There's some tech stocks getting hit. We got some bouncing right now. If I take a look at the SPY right now, we're getting a little bit of a bounce. As you guys can see, we're actually pushing higher. We're almost towards the opening price right now on the SPY. You guys can see that here. We're trying to push here. So who knows where we can end up going. There's a lot here to kind of keep an eye out for. And things that we got to keep watch for, right? I think that we'll see what happens here in the SPY. If we can continue pushing through that kind of 398.50. Opening price was 398.36. So we're right off of that. We'll see if we get through that 36 level now and kind of push a little higher. But it's a hard day. I will say that right off the bat, right? I know that a lot of traders are talking about the choppy action that we have out there. And I've talked about this bounce, right? I've talked about this for a long time. Would we just get a bounce off of this channel area? And it seems like we're just starting to hold that area and really starting to hold even closer towards kind of the 392 area. So from this point on, it's going to be like kind of 390s and we can keep holding, keep driving, or it's looking like we could see a little bit of a turnaround back below the 390. But if we can come back through, let's say the 410 this week or the next couple of weeks, that's where you really get that bullish action to continue a little bit higher, right? So that's what I'm looking to see if we can get above the 402.63 area. That's where we stopped near last time, 402.50. Can we get back up through that level towards the 405? That's going to be a bullish outlook there. We'll see what happens if we get that expansion or if we get some more bank concerns and we crush through this 390. That's where I'll start looking to get into some shorts again into, let's say, some tech overnight and some longer shorts, right? Right now, I have been playing some short action. Today, I was able to do a lot of day trading for me today. Normally, I make a lot more money in the swing trading action. Today was more of the day trading action. Now, there was one that I should have maybe kept in a little bit, but you guys know my rule of how I like to attack these types of stocks, which was I was trying to short tech stocks here, but I did get in NVIDIA and on the first action was able to take some profits. So as the stock came back through the break-even spot, I actually got stopped out on the rest of this NVIDIA break-even after making a nice gain and then seeing the stock just completely tumble through the intraday lows. That's where these lows at 266. We could have rolled that down there towards around 265 and even held that, right? My entry there was towards 269.70s. But right here, when we had this last little pop before it just dropped again, that's where it stopped me out, break even. And yes, this is kind of more of a miss. Maybe I didn't give myself enough room there, but it's going to be one of those that, yeah, I wish I could have back, but hey, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and it don't matter now. NVIDIA going lower, but definitely we can catch this to see what happens in these tech names. I saw AMD get a little bit weaker, and I was looking to kind of trade on this move, so I went with a lot of stocks S today. That had a nice little gain there towards the kind of break towards the 1850s. It continued going even to 19. And looks like it's holding the VWAP pullback right now. So we'll see if these tech names can continue breaking down. Let's take a look at some of the bigger boys. Microsoft continuing to break down. I was noticing this rejection off of 281s multiple times. Was looking to get short on this name, but just kind of missed it out after kind of, let's say, 1030 because it went right here towards 280.92. That was another failed attempt to get to 281, and that's when we really started seeing the leak. It came down there to 276. Not a bad move there in Microsoft, and you were able to capture that first swing low, right? And I'm taking a look at Apple right now. That also came down a little bit today. Google coming down a little bit today. The only question is the mega cap trade already actually just did it already top out here and now really starting to turn around? Or is this simply a pullback for an opportunity? I think you could see an opportunity maybe present itself again in Google later in the week as it attempts to get to 106. But if we can't get to 108, eventually we could pull right back maybe 50% of the recent move. We've just pulled back here towards 103.85. Of course, this came off the 90s going up there towards 106. So a retrace of that action here would be about, let's just put it on here, use the retracement tool. 50% would be around, let's say 98.50s, 98.75. So we'll look to see if we retrace 50%, pull back into that level, and find some buyers in a stock like Google. You guys smash the like out there. I'm going to catch up with you guys in the chat right now. How we doing out there? We got, of course, France S. What's going on? Swinging, baby. Let's get it going. You guys know where you guys are at. What else we got in the chat here? Raz is in the chat. What's going on? Hola, ¿cómo estamos? What's up, Raz? You speak Spanish? Let's go. I got that in me. I got it in the back pocket. I hide it there. What's going on, Easy? How we doing? Walter in the house. You guys know it. Hammer. It's hammer time. Let's see. Smoke tuna. What's going on, man? There's no real trade all day. Yeah, I feel like it, man. The only trade today was to go try to catch some fish or something because it seemed like that type of market. Disney popped on layoff news. I mean, did it really pop off layoff news or did it pop off of Netflix? We'll see. And really, I mean, are we still looking at layoffs as a negative thing? I don't know. Are we looking at it as a positive thing? We've been viewing it as positive, but I think eventually that's going to become a negative. I've always talked about that. But for right now, it's still a positive. Let's talk a little bit about that. Angelina, ¿cómo está? How we doing? It's good to see you in the chat. The wolf out there, Angelina. Be careful, guys. Be careful. All right, let's get into the action. We'll take a look at the sectors that were hot today. But of course, let's start talking a little bit about my trading action. Then we'll get into the sectors and industry. And don't forget, we got Option Mike coming up next at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to take a look at some options trades, stick around. We got, of course, Option Mike coming up. I see you, Angelina. All right, let's keep going. Let's take a look at some other trades, see what's going on. I did take a Chevron short today. That maybe should have taken some profits as it was coming down here. It was going down to 156. I went and took some lunch. Well, actually, not lunch, breakfast, really. Late breakfast here around 11 a.m. When I came back, the price was actually going back through my levels. I gave it a little bit of room to 157.50, right around the opening price, right? Opening price 157.58. Didn't want to let it go through that level, so I stopped out on Chevron here as we came back through the 157.50. And to give full disclosure, I did stop out of another name also, which was Valero. Valero, as it came back here towards this 131.75, I got in there at 131.74 and then stopped out immediately right afterwards. I wanted to give it a really small kind of like leash, really small risk here. So as it came back through the 132.50 level, where it kind of came up here multiple times, rejected the 40s, rejected the 30s, rejected 42. I was like, all right, well, if it gets above 50s, I want to get out of this one. So as it cracked the 132.50s here, just before the show started, got stopped out in Valero. And that's how it's going to happen, team. One thing is that I will always try to be for you guys is just be transparent, right? Like, this is a trade that, yeah, it was a very small loss, and maybe it could have held it a little bit longer, but it was one of those that I just wanted to see it kind of really cut down really quickly. It was either going to happen or it wasn't. We'll see what happens here towards the close. I could still go after Valero again if we could cut through that 131.64 again, maybe using the same level again, that 132.50 area. But like always, what I want to do is be able to get out and be able to get back in. That's where a lot of traders struggle. And so a lot of times I'm going to have to take the hit, but got to be okay with going back to the action. All right, so you're out of the oil trade. Yes, I'm out of the oil trade for now. And this morning, I did take profits in Chevron, and I took profits in XOM. So I think that that's an important outlook too. Was able to take some profits this morning. Where do we take profits on XOM? At 104.74 right out the gates. And then on Chevron, we took the profits at 157.40 right out the gates. So that was the first early trade. that was from Friday's swing. So I hope you guys understood the trades out there. Let's get to the sectors and take a look at some of my new trades that I'm into. Let's get into the sectors and we'll talk about them as we touch here. All right, let's go to, of course, what I like to do is always take a look at what stocks are moving, what isn't. Let's get right into it here. Of course, we can do that by just taking a look at the industry's outlook here. Consumer defensive doing really well today, and also healthcare. But look at energy now leading the way and really taking off in the middle of the day. Now it's starting to turn around here, so I could go after Valero again. You can see how this is kind of cutting back down, right? You're going to see, I expect to start seeing some weakness start showing up in these oil names. I was looking back towards like kind of 3 p.m., maybe a closing hour. We get some hard downside action in the SPY here. So I like Valero. I like maybe some tech names short. So I'll go ahead and I'll set an alert here to see if this goes off here at the 131.75. I could go short right here off the 133s, but I'm going to give it a second here just to see what happens if we start really getting the takedown. XOM looking like it's also topping out here around the 106 area. And I could hold off the 107 here for XOM, kind of like this trend line here to just keep kind of breaking down here and cutting through the lows. So it could reject here and then just cut back through 104 tomorrow, which would be a good outlook here, right? And so I'm trying to take off some of these lines to clean it up for me, but I still like the oil trade to the downside. The big thing, though, that we also need to see is oil WTI actually cut down, because I saw that above 72.80s today. Would this cut down back below 70? If it doesn't, I think we also will see that up move. So that's just how I feel about energy. Let's keep moving. Let's take a look at some other trades and let's talk about them there. All right, so I want to keep this one on my radar. So I'm going to keep Valero on the upside chart for me. I already see it coming down a little bit here, but let's get into some other trades. Let's talk about it. Basic materials also getting a lift today. Silver having a decent day there. Let me actually pull this a little bit so I can see from the open. And you can see silver leading the way on the upside. Coal getting some up action today. BTU finally bouncing back after being really weak. Agricultural inputs getting a little bit of a lift today. Been watching MOS to see if we're going to push back here, but it hasn't been really strong. It's been pretty weak. Let's take a look. Industrials getting some lift today. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is pushing there? We got some airport air services doing well today. Tools and accessories, not really stocks that I look at often, right? Stanley Black & Decker getting a little bit of a lift today of some of these smaller names that you guys can keep an eye on for. Snap-on Inc. These are tools, of course, not anything that I'm thinking it's too strong, but definitely it's trying to make its way back here to the 240s. You can also look at farm and heavy construction. DE bouncing back today, CAT bouncing back a little bit. They had a hammer candle, so not too bad to see the reversal to the bullish upside. Of course, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about patterns, we talk a lot about patterns in our book club. We talked about hammers all around on Sunday, so if you guys didn't catch that, definitely check out the book club. Some of the hammers that we talked about them on Deere. We talked about them on Booking, on MasterCard, on DDS, Crocs, names like this, Ross Stores. Let's take a look at some of these. BKNG had a decent day, got a little bit higher than that hammer candle. What about MasterCard? Nice little day there for MasterCard getting up there. And you guys see the candles there, so you guys can keep an eye on it. And even Dillard's trying to pull back. If anything, it's making another hammer candle here. We'll see what happens on these department stores. Let's keep going. Financial services bouncing back today a little bit. You got Visa, JPM bouncing back. The banks bouncing back. Do you guys think the banking situation is done? Do you guys think the crisis is done? Put a 1 if you guys think the crisis is done. Put a 2 in the chat if you guys feel like there could still be some bank concerns. And put a 3 in the chat if you just don't know. Well, that's going to be an opinion too. We'll see what you guys have to say. Let's keep it looking into underneath the hood. What do we got there? Financial services, definitely we're going higher. Of course, Bank of America bouncing back through this 27, I think is very vital. If we can really kind of hold here, you can see kind of how we could reverse back to the upside. Morgan Stanley, one that I got short in 95s. It's down there to 85. Could start bouncing here. We'll see what happens there in Morgan Stanley and the financial services. Now, in defensive names, well, we can look at it in the industrials, right? Industrials, I did take a trade that I want to tell you guys a little bit about. And this is definitely a little bit out of the regular for me. There's not many times, team, where I do take trades that are pretty expensive. The reason why is that I have trouble sometimes dealing with the volatility in these names that are truly expensive. I went after one today that I thought I talked about it way early on in the day. So I was looking for kind of a plan to come into, roost here. And I took Lockheed Martin for a trade here. So I've gotten some ad in this. I am averaged at 473.63. We're right now at 474. What I like this one is kind of more on the daily and weekly outlook. If we can push back through, you can see how we pulled back, kind of that just pullback of Friday's close around the 474.55. If we can hold that, come back up through the high around like the 480s, I think we have some clear room to kind of push back towards 490s and 500 on Lockheed Martin. And of course, this is defensive stocks. So we have been seeing defensive stocks get a little bit of a lift. We'll see if I can catch this in Lockheed Martin. Of course, it's a smaller position, looking for a bigger move, right? I'm looking for a move, what? $7? Wait, $7 just gets us to 480s. That's not even going to be enough. I'm looking for that like 485, 490s, a big move here. One thing that I can at least not stress so much about an LMT is I don't expect to see a quick down move through that 470. So I at least know where my risk is on this one. We'll find out what happens there. Catching up in the chat, I understand that banks' money interjects is mostly to benefit the Chinese investors and companies. Yeah, it could be to kind of save some of their monies, but there's a lot more than just Chinese money that's up at risk. There's also a lot of U.S. money. But let's get the votes in the chat. Is the banking situation overblown or not? There's some ones here that think that, yeah, we could be seeing it overblown. There's some twos here, right? There's some twos. Smoke Tuna is like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. That's just smoke to me. Hammer saying two. We got some more twos here. Some people think that, yeah, the bank situation is still a worry to be worried about. It's interesting, I think that's what it's all about. That's why it's a market. A lot of people bringing up the twos here. So you guys keeping me a little bit more on check here. We'll have to find out if that does work out. But for right now, we ain't going to battle too much on this, right? I mean, it's just there's still a lot of concerns out there. The market overall, though, looking pretty bullish, on a day where tech is getting hit also, and we're ending right now into the green. We'll see what happens in the power hour, but it doesn't look good right now, right? We'll see what happens in these names. Also, keeping an eye on the energy trade, right? You can see Valero bouncing right back here. So we're going to look to see if it rejects the trend line here around the 132.50s, 132.60s, and then does that turnaround look. So let's see if it can come back here, create resistance, and then really kind of flush through that 131.75. I don't mind taking a shot on this one before. I have made a decent profit from around the 136 before, and this came down pretty fast. Let's see if I can get it again. All right, it is trying to get back there towards the 132.50s and 132.60s. We'll see if we get that little lift there. Healthcare is another area where I took some shots today. Let's talk a little bit about that. I went for Pfizer here off the daily chart, and we'll see if this was able to hold. This one's all about, for me, defining my risks. So a lot of this is just more being able to hold off of 40 right off the dot. Don't got to worry too much. If we're going to get below 40s, we're probably going to go on Pfizer. But if we could come back through and get towards the 41s and close up there, we won't be looking too bad in this one. This is kind of reversal action in these names. Now I'm just going to have to wait to see if we can get that reversal action. Of course, healthcare was pretty strong early on in the day, up about 0.49 today. We'll see how these kind of hold up. Biotech names, just keeping an eye on some of those like Amgen, Gilead, Regeneron, VRTX. We'll see what happens on those. Moderna, BNTX definitely got hit today. And so that's what kind of held it back, I think, for the trade today. But I'll look to see if some of these biotechs and health names can really get moving. All right, how we doing out there? That's a big two. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot too. There's a lot of twos out there, and a lot of people still concerned about the banking situation. So we got to be careful, team. All right, there's some other names being thrown up here. Of course, you see technology is actually down today, so that's one thing to note. NVIDIA was definitely a miss for me earlier. It looks like it's rejecting there, but we'll have to find out what happens on that stock. Here's Valero coming back, trying to reclaim that level, right? Trying to get back into that 3260, the trend line, right? So you guys see how I drew this trend line. It's trying to get back there. But if it can reject it, start using it as resistance or a rejection line, let's say towards this 3260s, and just comes right back through 32s, that's when we want to go ahead and try to tackle it down. We'll find out if I'm able to get into Valero on the short side. All right, you guys smash the like. Let's take a look at some of the stocks that you guys were looking at today. Netflix being one of those stocks that was really strong out the gates. Now pulling back here. This is where we got to be a little bit careful. This stock is having a really strong kind of 3 days. So you could get a pullback towards, let's say, 315 on Netflix. I know no one wants to hear that, but I mean, this has been a big run. It makes sense for a 50% retracement towards 315. Right now, it's seeming like it's pulling back here. On the hourly, you could see it maybe hold the hourly support. You saw it hold that as of recent through the 325 and then recovering that. But if it breaks 325 again, I could see it going towards 315. We'll find out on Netflix. And of course, Disney moving with Netflix. I talked about that earlier on today. Whenever I see Netflix have a nice little up move, I'm looking for Disney to catch some sympathy. You guys can see that pushed up there. And we did get that news from Disney today on the layoffs, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. They're launching the first of 3 job cutting rounds this week. So it looks like there's about 7,000 workforce cut in February this week. So it's not good though, team. When we keep seeing these kind of unemployment things, I think in the long run, it's going to hurt these companies. I don't think it's going to help them because their growth outlook should keep dropping and dropping. Future earnings dropping and dropping. I know they're being able to cut some costs, but at what lengths, right? I know Disney's mentioned that they don't want to spend on content for Disney Plus. I think that's a huge negative in the long run for them. But hey, to each his own, right? If you guys think Disney's a good buy here, then go for it. At least in my outlook, at least we're getting kind of a bullish engulfing candle for the day. If you're looking for a swing maybe towards 98, this could be in play. I'm not touching Netflix or Disney today. This doesn't seem like the best place for me. But to each his own, right? It could be something that you want to get. All right, Mitch, some bull that we have. Some bull that we have in markets looks okay, but I understand that HYG must move according to with that. SPY is bullish. IWM is up. Then why is HYG not up? All right, let's find out. HYD is, of course, bonds, right? And so bonds, you want to be looking into the bond game. How did the yields do today? How did the TLT do today? So you were talking about how, yes, the SPY is up, but look how TLT did today, right? TLT didn't do that good today. He was strong before, but that's a heavy turnaround there. Why is that a turnaround? Because the bonds were going up, showing us that we were closer towards the end, closer towards that recession, closer to the turn from the pivot, right, of the interest rates. Well, TLT going down today, not looking strong. And that's another reason why you're also seeing that kind of HYG, right, those junk bonds or high yield corporate bonds ETF here going down also. You can look at kind of the junk ETFs also. What's JNK, right? And so you guys can see here, those are going down also, high yield bond ETF. So you can see the bonds overall were going down today. And I hope that helps, Angelina. Mickey's unemployed. Yeah, Mickey is unemployed. I actually heard that they're going to stop using so much Mickey Mouse because I think the copyright comes up or something like that. Some trademark actually comes up where some other people can make some things with Mickey. So I heard they're going to be using something else, but hey, we'll see what happens there. All right, let's keep going. We'll take a look at some other stocks to see what was moving in the SPY. Let's go to that action. Of course, I got Pfizer and Lockheed Martin. Keeping an eye on Valero today to see if I'm going to be able to get back into this name. I don't mind taking another shot. Still hasn't gone up there towards the 132.60s, but it's rejecting kind of this 132.50s right now. I'm going to give it a shot towards that 60s and see if it tries to recover 133 here towards the close. If it rejects that move, that's when I can come after it. We'll see what happens. All right. There's some other moves that we can definitely take a look at. In a second, we'll be getting into our interview. Let's take a look at what are some of the leading stocks here. And let's do it on a different scanner. I have a scanner here that does like kind of 5-day price trends with the market. So stocks have been the strongest in the last 5 days towards the market. And this is up about 2.34% EMPH, right? So our solar stocks on watch. Yeah, I would say so too, because the second stock here is SEZG. So keep that in mind, right? We'll see what happens on these. Is this the one that we want to keep on watch? We'll see if these solar names can keep pushing. You got Matt showing up there. Carnival Cruise Lines, not something that I'll be looking at too much here, but definitely keep it on watch. ACN getting a nice little lift there. That one actually doesn't look too bad. Pretty strong move there from ACN. You can see here a nice little big day, inside kind of day. Well, you got a little bit above that close, right? And then now you keep kind of pushing up, but higher lows on this trend. Doesn't look too bad there for ACN. Let's go to Tesla here. Tesla's been one that we're looking to see if do we recover 200 or do we come down for the down gap into the 185s back towards the 182. We'll see what happens. I think Tesla's just kind of one of those in the middle right now. It's going to really more determine about what happens, I think, in the overall market in the tech names, but I'll keep on watch to see what happens there in Tesla. And a stock that has been strong today, pulled back significantly with the turnaround in some of the tech names, was Micron. Right? This was pushing off the bottom. We were talking about that. That really got the motor going and got it up there to 6150s. But now you see kind of a triple top there around the 6150s. So let's see if we can get back through there. If not, this could easily be right back down to 58s. And we could see the down action come in for some of these tech names. All right, we'll see what happens there in Micron. If you guys have any other tickers to throw up, stay with them. We'll definitely try to leave a little bit of ticker time at the end. Smash the like, team. We'll see what else is going on. And I'll do one more here because it was mentioned in the chat. Peloton, I haven't taken a look at it forever, so I just wanted to take a look. Not much. I mean, I don't think Peloton's changing their story anytime soon, right? I don't think this is the time where you'll see Peloton change that story. We need to see the story change in Peloton. Right now, it's not in favor. And when's the last time you heard somebody tell you that they just bought a Peloton and they're jumping on it? When you hear that being mentioned again, and maybe we could take a look at it. Nothing that I think is interesting as of right now. We'll see what happens there in Peloton and some other names. All right. Well, we are getting a little bit of bounce here. Let's go back to the market. I know that we were trying to get a little bit of a bounce. Will it be able to hold back above the opening price? Opening price here on the open, 398.13. Can we get back there? Looks like we rejected it on the last move. We're at 397.76. Let's see if we get through that open. Looks kind of like a little bit of a cup and handle there on like the 15 intraday, but we'll see what happens there. If it can actually make that move to the upside or not. All right, getting out of the SPY, we can go ahead and bring on our guest as we get into the market. We'll see, right? Like always, I want to bring on other traders to give you guys perspective. So in the chat, if you guys agree, disagree, go ahead and let us know. That's what it's all about. Like always, I say there's two sides to every coin, right? So if you guys feel a different way, mention it in the chat. That's what we're all here for, trading ideas. And like always, for informational purposes, let's bring on, of course, Option Mike and take a look underneath the hood. All right. How we doing, Option Mike? It's good to have you back.
Mitch, how are you, man?
It's always good to talk markets with you, man. It seems like today was one of those days where we probably could have gone off to the beach somewhere unless you got some of these early plays. But let's talk a little bit about the market, see what kind of setups are out there. Of course, it seems like there's like a binary event right now almost. And we were talking a little bit about this on PreMarket Prep. It seems like it's either going to be, you know, the bank situation's done with and we should just go running to tech, or maybe the bank situations come in and crush us. We should be maybe running away from tech. What do you think?
I think we're at a sideways market. And nobody wants to hear this, but I've been talking about this for a little bit while now. And I've been talking about this in my room, and we are in a market that's sideways. And if you look at the S&P 500, and I'm going to rant a little bit today, so
go for it, man.
You
Let it
cut me
out.
off whatever you want.
Let it out.
I'm tired of the either perma bulls or perma bears saying, "Oh, we're going to 45, 4,500, 5,000. Oh, we're going to 3,500." And you ask them why, they don't. Oh, there's no good reason, right? They're just okay. So if you look at the SPY in very simplistic terms, guys, and I keep talking about this, we are stuck in a very big, wide range. You see, this is marked up to hell. So let me make it easy. We have this downtrend since February 2nd that is in control. We have the low from 2 weeks ago with the bank crisis that's also here, and we are in between it. And if you look back and you keep backing up, we basically have gone nowhere for the last 6 months. This market is sideways.
Yeah, since pretty much November, it's done nothing.
Right. So if you want to say this market's going back and has to retest the lows, well, so far it's shrugged off every little piece of bad news that's had thrown at it, and it's just saying no. Yeah, it's also shrugging off every little good piece of good news as it's shrugged at it and saying no. So, to me, this is something I'm not interested in the index here. I would say I have more interest in the QQQs because the QQQs are acting better, but there's a concern here. And I've been talking about this ad nauseum with my members, is you have this QQQs trying to break out while the SPY is stuck in this downtrend, but it's doing it on like 8 to 12 of these anointed names. And you can name these names, right? Come on, guys in the room, go ahead and help me out here.
Yeah, you know it, team. You know it, like we say, that the stock market of 5 stocks, Yeah.
To me, the danger is always when you have a couple names that are holding an index up because they so heavily weighted, they can't hold it forever. And either we broaden out or we're doomed to have a pullback or come down. So, the fact that Google's down today, Microsoft's down today, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, AMD, but none of them are down that much. So is today just a day of rest where there's some profit taking, or is today the start of a new trend in the market? And I think it's way too early to tell that, but that's something you have to consider here. This is either a buying opportunity for the rest of the week, and I do mean just the rest of the week, or this is the start of a pullback. I tend to think this is more of a buying opportunity. You saw some profit taking come in here at this point as we go into the end of the quarter, but I'm not long anything here like that.
It's tough. And I think that, at least we could see the Qs kind of in these tech stocks continue to climb this wall of worry, but it's also a hard trade now to jump in, right? I mean, because a lot of these tech names are up, 20, 10, 15%. And these are bigger stocks. We don't see this move happen too often. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky here to start new positions, right? I mean, if you're already kind of climbing the wave, I can't blame you for climbing and just continuing to kind of stay with the trend. But for the new trader out there that's trying to look at trades, what do you think about that option, Mike?
I think you're careful here. Plus, we're 2 weeks away from starting earnings season again.
Yeah.
And you brought up Micron. Micron has earnings tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could start changing the tech trade really quickly, right? I mean, that was the first one that warned us, right? Yeah. Micron was the first one. Out of all the tech stocks, that was the first kind of disaster name. And then Nvidia followed after that. We saw Nvidia make its way all the way back. And I was looking at that Micron chart and was like, man, we started climbing back a little bit.
I mean, if Micron beats big tomorrow and raises guidance, this thing could blast off and it could lift the market. And again, what I've been talking about is the leadership in the semis. The semis broke out last week in the middle of this market. And this is, I know we're a little bit off script here, but this is kind of where we want to, you're looking at. In this market, to me, you're not trying to be overly zealous. You're not trying to load up here. You're just playing individual names of strength. I come on the last couple of times, we talked about Meta, we talked about Microsoft, we talked about Google, we talked about Nvidia, AMD. At this point, I'm a little bit more careful because these names have run a ton and the rest of the market's not running with it. So something has to give here. Either the rest of the market catches up and they take a break, or everything rolls over and these come in with it. And, we're at that point now, what's going to happen here, right? You get window dressing. If you guys aren't familiar with window dressing, the end of the quarter, that last week especially, all these funds that don't own these names that have run all quarter, like, oh, they start buying them here because they're like, oh, I got to say I own them in my portfolio. Otherwise, I'm going to lose investors.
But no, definitely. It's around that time, right? And I mean, I was talking about that too, Option Mike, in the case of like the traders that, you know, at the beginning of the year, they probably went long these tech names, and a lot of them are up from the beginning of the year 20, 30, 40%. And if for any reason you didn't have exposure to these tech names, right, wouldn't you want to maybe just pile them in a little bit?
I got to say, I held them. I got to tell my investors, yeah, we have AMD. Yeah, we had Google. Yeah, we had Microsoft, right? Because if you don't,
yeah, right,
you look like you're an idiot.
That's the truth, right? And I mean, I don't think that's us making things complicated. That's more just keeping it simple, right? And I think that that's an important outlook to look at. That's why I'm like, man, if we could just get through this banking crisis, right? If it's really not a crisis here, and for some reason we could just get through that, yeah, the focus might shift to inflation, but we all know the writing's on the wall, at least for the interest rates. Maybe one more, possibly randomly two more, but I couldn't possibly think that three more interest rates are out there.
I tend to agree with the concept that the Fed is going to have to cut this year before the end of the year. I tend to think that, as stubborn as this Fed is, and they are stubborn. Yeah, they're going to have to cut rates before the end of the year. So I agree with you. And to me, the best thing that happened this weekend, if you're looking for an end to the banking crisis, well, there's two things. One, Silicon Valley, 90 billion of their assets got bought at a huge discount. Now, the FDIC ate $20 billion in a loss, and they still have 90 billion left to sell. But that got bought. But also, First Republic, which is considered to be in huge trouble, they didn't step in over the weekend and take them over. And that, to me, says that the FDIC is not worried here, and that this worry might be a little bit more panic in the markets than is actual real. And then if you look at my chart here, and Chris in our room pointed this out this morning, you have this nice little island bottom on JP Morgan today. And we talked about JP Morgan pre-market. That's the one bank of a trade. An island bottom, guys, is when you gap down, you create a bunch of candles, or one candle in this case, and then you gap up, leaving anybody short there trapped. You can do this as a top two. So you have a bunch of people who shorted this and who held it overnight on Friday who are now trapped. And you have this nice move on JP Morgan. We saw this on some of the other big banks. So what to watch for here is, if this is real, we don't retest that. We just keep going up and we keep pushing up. If tomorrow we come in and we sell this strength in JP Morgan, then there's still some worry here. But to me, this is a bullish signal on the banks. Again, I'm going to say this because everybody keeps asking me about, oh, I want to buy First Republic or this. I would stick with the big banks, the top big five, the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachs, the Wells Fargo, the Citigroups, the Bank of America. If you have to go into the regionals, I would do KRE, the regional ETF, or the Key or Ally or HBAN, some of the bigger ones, not these little or less known ones.
Yeah, I agree. And also take a look, into liquidity when you're thinking, if you're thinking those smaller ones, right? The bigger ones, you're not going to have to stress too much about liquidity. But the truth is, yes, there's some liquidity concerns with some of these smaller ones, and the spreads could be wide, things like that. They could definitely
look at the implied volatility. When you go into a First Republic and the IV, which was like 600-700% last week. I mean, and you're looking at an option trade. They're asking you, they're going to take, they're basically telling you banks never have IV that high. They're basically saying they're taking advantage of you. You got to be smarter than that.
They're letting you know it right off the back. And I think that that's the important thing to also think about. And for newer traders, especially if you're getting into options, to understand, right, that there's some other things that go into playing than just the direction when you're talking options. I think Option Mike is definitely one of those that will definitely know out there that, hey, there's some more to think about than when we're looking at just a position if we want to get into it, because it's all about the expense, right? How much is this going to cost me to make this type of trade when we're getting into more of the option side?
That's exactly it. And are they stacking the deck against you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if that's happening,
in options, they can do that.
Yeah, and the edge can be completely almost taken there, right? Even if you had the idea, well, now the edge is kind of deteriorating there because of what's going on there, especially when you get into these kind of weeklies and the, the 0 DTE options. Oh man, that's how you easily,
you have no time there.
Yeah, you can get destroyed. Let's get into some of these charts. What else do you want to get into? Let's keep it rolling here. What you got for me?
Let's talk quickly about Netflix. So Netflix had not been on my radar, and then last Thursday, so one thing that's happening right now that we've been noticing here is they've been telling their moves very quickly in the morning. The last couple of days, we've seen flow into names I wasn't even looking at that came in big and came in the first 5 minutes of the day. So last Thursday, Netflix was one. Look at this move on Thursday. Friday followed through today. You had a 2.5 day move on this. So they're basically telling their move. They did this on Netflix. I traded Marvel on Thursday. It was the same thing. They came in huge on Thursday into that name very early. And today it was IBM. Another one I'm in. I'm still in small now overnight. I took most of my profits here, but look at the move on this today. And today they were hitting the 130 calls out of the gate, like instantly out of the gate. They had 10,000 within the first 5 minutes of these things bought. So in a market like this, you have to look for something different or an edge. And right now, where option flow sometimes isn't as good, right now it's giving an edge. It's calling attention to names we don't normally look at. And what I mean by that is, I'm looking, I have 30 charts up in front of me. I have an idea every day what I'm looking at, but it's starting to call attention to names that aren't there. And that tells you that they're looking at other names, they're looking for other places to go, and they're giving a tell. And that tell right now is options flow. And if they're listening to this, please don't stop.
Right. I hear you. And that's an important thing to catch. And I think we kind of talk a little bit about that this morning on pre-market prep when we were referring to liquidity in names and how important that is when you're looking for where the trades are going, right? How much money is being transacted in that stock today could be something to catch, right? Because if we're trying to work out of a huge position, if one of these big boys, well, yeah, you're going to need some liquidity in that stock to get out of that money. So I think like a stock like that we brought up was NVIDIA. And that's been a definitely interesting stock as of late. Has been on a monster tear lately.
Huge.
Keep seeing it like kind of top around 276. Earlier today, I day traded it around the 268.97 level, around that kind of that 267 level. But man, this is a tough one there. What do you think about this chart?
I think it's had a huge run. I think it's been one of the stocks that have been piling into it. We talked about. To me, right now, there's no trade until it hits and holds the 8-day, which is a little bit under here, still at the 261 area, or it takes out the high, right? If it hits the 261 and it holds, I'm interested. I just don't know here. It's kind of in this I don't know position, right? And I think if I was to tell you traders out there who are new or struggling, you have to recognize there's times to trade with your hair on fire, and there's times to just sit there and sit back and say no. I traded 2 trades today. I traded Tesla out of the gate, made a little bit of money, and I traded IBM, made a decent amount of money on that. And that's all I've done today. And the reason is the market wasn't there. The setups weren't there. You have to look and say, how do I feel about this? Well, right now I have a very unsure feeling on NVIDIA. I'm not sure if this is the end of this run or if this is just a small little pullback in this run that's going to give me a nice little entrance. And it's too early to tell.
Yeah, and that's the truth. And when it's too early to tell, it's going to be kind of hard to have some edge. I'm playing it a little bit for that downside action, but I can see what you mean by maybe catching the 8 or the 9 there on pullbacks. And this has been one of the strongest stocks, so it's really hard to go after a strong stock in the shorting style like I'm looking at it too. And I always keep that in mind, right? Especially when I'm shorting into strength, got to keep that into perspective and try not to get squeezed, because the truth is you're playing against the herd. That's usually not the best way, right?
So many people always say, I want to short, I want to fade this, I want to short this top, I want to short this here. But when you're playing the strong names and you're trying to short them, sometimes it works, but other times it comes back and rips your face right off. And
100%.
If you want to short, there's so many weaker names out there to short right now in this market. I mean, again, unless we, for me, everybody's like, well, the market's weak today. The market's really not that weak today. And I think that's the thing I keep pointing out. We really haven't gone anywhere. We're trading in a very tight range. So if you want me to get bearish on NVIDIA, I'd like to see the market falling apart. Then I would say, go ahead and short NVIDIA. But here, we went nowhere today. You can see the SPY kind of touched the 50-day and backed off of it, and there's nothing going on. And you want to be short, but you need to have conviction in it. I don't have conviction in a short or long here other than individual names right now.
All right, let's go taking a look at an interesting name. Let's take a look at let's do Marvell. Marvell is an interesting one. It's very similar to me, like Micron, but of course doesn't have maybe the earnings coming up so soon. Did bounce off that kind of bottoming action. I could see these names getting picked up last week. What do you think about the name?
It was a great trade on Thursday, but couldn't hold. It's back here into this cluster, but holding the 8-day. I mean, it's the 5G play, right? Marvel is the king of 5G.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, as much as I like this name, it's got to take out. It's still under the 200-day. It's weaker. I actually kind of like Qualcomm better here. Qualcomm, if it can hold above this 200-day, I like this better in the space as a catch-up play compared to some of the other semis that have already run. Today it gapped up above the 200-day and then came back in, gap and crap. But at least here it's trying. I don't know. The semis to me are the place to be if the market decides it wants more. That's been leading this for the last couple of weeks, and that's where I want to be. I prefer AMD. I prefer NVIDIA. I prefer Qualcomm here. AMAT's another name I really like a lot. It's not trading bad. It's just kind of, again, it's stuck. And I think that's the thing you have to look at. There's this very big divide between names they want and names they don't want.
All right, let's do one last one, a very common one that's been on a big Dan Loeb mention run. AMD, man, if I was that guy, I'd probably just run to it because that was a big position, right?
How much do you think he sold already?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I'm with you, right? Option Mike, we're like, man, we would have taken that money and ran with it.
But I mean, since he's bought this thing, it's been on a tear.
Yeah, I think he got in the 78s around there, 78, 80 levels. So, I mean, not bad scooping up the support there.
Not so bad. No, that's what his announcement was great. I mean, again, I think AMD is one of the better stocks out there in the semis. First of all, you got Lisa, and she is maybe one of the best CEOs we know out there. She is so smart and so good. The stock has been beaten down for a long time for no particularly good reason. As somebody in my room said, wait till they announce their AI initiative. Good point. Great point. Right now, obviously 102.50 is resistance. Then I'd look up at the 105 level and then up here into the 110. Just keep it simple. I mean, everybody likes to go get really complicated. I'm very simple. Okay, this is resistance. Here's your 105 area, and then here's your 110. I just go with the previous highs, and I'm done. I'm good. I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I think with this stock, at least, I'd be looking for some pullback action, but definitely, I'm with you on the best of breed. And I think that, one thing that we brought about on pre-market prep today, it was kind of funny. We talked about leading stocks in the S&P 500, 10 years, 15 years ago. And there were some names that were very common names that pretty much are nothing nowadays, right? Like Exxon Mobil was definitely a big oil company, and not nowhere near what it is now, right? And I think that's when I start thinking about comparisons to Intel and AMD, and I'm like, AMD's the new better thing, and I don't think that Intel is coming for AMD's lunch. I think AMD already took Intel's lunch, and
Intel has not had a good CEO now in forever. They have not executed well in forever. They just don't. Everything they do seems to not be good. They launched these. They came out with a very innovative, great idea. We're going to launch a low-end video card called the ARC, and it was brilliant, except it's not working well. It's the story.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part, right? They're not performing,
right?
And that's the part that I try to keep people thinking about in Intel. I know a lot of people tell me, but it's Intel, it's never going away. Yeah, I mean, it might never go away, but it could also be an $8 stock here for the next 30, 40 years.
Well, it can't be good because they suspended their dividend and laying people off. I mean, they have problems there, and they've probably just gotten too big for their own good. There's too much,
big, right? You can get to a size where you get so big that you start losing on the control of the margins.
Yeah.
And then if you lose some kind of demand, which we clearly see it, right? There's more demand now, and almost, I would say, to keep it simple, more like equal demand for these chips, I would say, in computers nowadays. But at the same time,
I haven't bought an Intel chip in 6 years.
Yeah, and majority of your like people that build computers, you tell them, what are you building with?
AMD.
Yeah, I'm using a Ryzen, right? I'm using.
Even though Intel slightly beat them out this last generation, overall AMD is pushing forward faster than Intel is. Yeah, I agree. I stay on the AMD bandwagon. It's just better.
I'm with you on that, and I think that one time, there's very rare times, but you can buy certain COEs that you just they kick it out the water. Like that's why I always look back at Ulta and be like, well, they kick it out the water almost every time. You got to have leadership, and if your leadership can keep pushing you forward, well, then we'll continue to find different growth drivers to push it to the next level. Any last comments, Option Mike, for this week? Things you want to be looking out for?
Guys, we're in a tough spot here. We have GDP on Thursday. We have PCE on Friday. You have Fed's going to speak ad nauseum for the rest of the week, and the market's going nowhere. So play names, be patient, and don't overtrade, because that's a great way of giving anything back you're doing here.
Yeah, especially in sideways markets. That's what you're seeing out there, Option Mike. Appreciate you always being transparent, coming in here and telling it how it is, right? We'll have you back on like always. You guys keep up with everything Option Mike does, and you guys can check out his YouTube, right? He does put out some really great videos. You guys check him out. We'll see you next time, Option Mike. Take care, man.
Night, Mitch. Night, Benzinga.
All right, let's go ahead. We're going to get back to the market. We'll start wrapping up here. And I will let you guys know I am looking here at Valero, thinking about taking a shot on Valero here. Let's go ahead. Let's take a little bit of a shot here towards the close. I want to keep it really, really simple here on this one. So I'm going to go after it here and try to get like, a pretty decent outlook here towards the close. We'll see what happens on this one. Taking a little bit of a shot here on Valero off of 133s. I'm going to hold till tomorrow. If this blows through 133 pre-market, I'll just get out on Valero, taking a little bit of a shot here. We'll see what happens. It did kind of reject that 60 move up. So I want to see if we can come right back down through the 132 level. We'll see what happens on this one. Let's see. I think that at least I know my measured risk. And we'll see if oil kind of turns around here towards the close. XOM, we'll see if it kind of cuts right back down here towards the close. We won't be looking too bad on that one. Valero here, we'll see if it really gets that cut through. All right, so now we're starting to get that little downfill here towards the end, last 5 minutes. What do you guys see out there, team? 5-minute notice, says Raz. I hear it, team. What are you guys seeing out there making moves here towards the close? NVIDIA, I want to see if NVIDIA closes weak here. I want to see if the SPY closes weak. There it is. There's the weakness coming in there. Can take a look at some of these oil names to continue going after that. But I could also take a look at maybe like a tech name. I'm even interested in maybe shorting off a Tesla, because I think that a lot of people are just expecting this to get through 200. And it did try to make a move to 200 today. You can see kind of how like you tipped up there to 196. Are we going to start cutting back towards 170 on Tesla? This is one that I actually could think about risking off of, like, let's say 195. I'd have to be really, really careful with this one, but I don't mind it. I'm going to look to see what happens on Tesla tomorrow, but I don't mind maybe taking a short on Tesla. You guys know I've taken it down before, so we'll see if we can get back up there. Not going to take it right here at the close just because I don't know what can happen overnight. I feel like overnight it's been a very tough trade, team. So smash the like if you guys appreciate me getting you guys the insight. Did take the Valero there, and now we're cutting through 132, so it doesn't look too bad there as we start to close here through that 132. I wouldn't be mad as long as it can kind of get back there towards like 131.60s here towards the close. That will be looking good. Like we got it nice timed here. We'll find out what happens on that one. PFE now actually pulling back, getting me into the red. We'll keep this one until it breaks 40 tomorrow. If it does break 40, I'll get out of Pfizer on that one. And Lockheed Martin, of course, can give myself a little bit of room on this one towards kind of the 471s. Don't want it to break at 470s. Going to let this try to keep getting on the upside. Of course, this is more defensive name. Apple 158. Ooh, look at that downturn towards the close. Not looking good there. SPY looking pretty heavy here as we start to get down there. Google coming right back down towards 102.98, rejecting that 103.80 area. Meta Meta pulling back here. I was actually thinking about maybe shorting Meta today. But that's just because they're on the top, right? And I can at least know my risk. But of course, this is more of a higher risk trade. You got to be able to go after these. Stock test today, man, that was a nice little move today. Maybe should have held my original entry on this one. This one wasn't bad at all today. We got into stocks S there at 18. No, that's what we got. That's what this first profit, 18, right on the dot. And then we sold at 18.24. We sold at 18.36, and we sold at 18.50s on Success. So maybe could have held a little bit of that to maybe start taking a look at this type of trade. Maybe the NVIDIA held would have been a little bit nicer, right? If I would have held that through the break-even price. But overall, was a good day. Sometimes you're going to make some more on the day trading side. Sometimes you're going to make more on the swing trading side. For me today, that's on the day trading side. But what matters here? Risk to return, right? That's what matters. You guys can always catch the day trading action on live trading that starts every single day at 9:05 a.m. Eastern. So catch us, Ryan Faluna, Zunaid, and I on live trading. And like always, you guys can check out the swing trading action here. And a lot of the swing trades I open up during that show because I'm just trying to get the best intraday execution. We'll see what happens there. Let's go to Lulu. Lulu does report. I was keeping a close eye on it today to see if we rebound, and wouldn't you know it, we did rebound off that 311, but it was really that washout look opportunity. I didn't think we'd retrace so much of this candle. We had the bullish engulfing candle. We talked about this on the book club, how this was showing a nice little bullish candle. Today it pulled back, but man, it caught that resistance here. So one thing that we look for often is for prior resistance to become support. And you can see it right around this closing area where you were kind of closing in the past on the 22nd. You kind of held that on the pullback. Now you're right back up there towards pre-market highs. And this is a little bit too far for me now, but I'll keep an eye on Lulu to keep that, to see if it can keep running. Nike pulling back today. Let's take a look at Crocs. Crocs getting hit hard there on the pullback. We'll look to see if this can get moving here. Daily chart on this one looks a little bit interesting. It's trying to get back there through the 120s. Will it reject and come right back through the 110s? We'll see what happened there. Can I take a look at Carnival? I got that. Last stock for you guys. Smash the like out there. Let's take a look at Carnival. I was looking at it today to see what happened on that one. And there's 4 o'clock. I got to get going, but I'll wrap it up here with Carnival. Definitely, it seems like a little bit of a downside reaction. I know they had an earnings call. I wasn't able to catch the earnings call. So I'm looking for a move back towards 8 and then the turnaround. If we can get below 8, these don't look too bad. But right now, they don't look strong. And I think that one thing that you got to keep in mind is if we are going to go into a recession, I feel these stocks will continue getting hit. Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Lines, all the cruise lines can get hit if we're going towards a recession. So you need to ask that question for yourself and see if you have an answer. Smash the thumbs up. I will see you guys bright and early on pre-market prep. Don't miss it, team. We got a lot for you guys this week. There's going to be a lot of action. Will we get back to the bank crisis concern? We'll find out tomorrow. Hit the thumbs up. I will see you guys bright and early on pre-market prep. Like always, team, we don't know which way the market's going to go right now. A lot of uncertainty. I'm taking some shots. I took some shots on Valero, short side today. Pfizer to the upside, and also Lockheed Martin to the upside. We'll find out how they work out, and you guys can keep up with it right here on Start Swing Trading. See you next time, team. Smash the like on your way out.